Previously on Jake Tran.
Around 30 years ago, a book was written that predicted all the chaos that we're going through today. See, in this book, the authors uncovered that history literally repeats itself in 80 to 100-year cycles. The first turning is a high, but then comes the second turning, the awakening. Then comes the third turning, the unraveling, and finally the fourth turning, the crisis. A destructive 20 to 25-year period that ends with a catastrophic event like a war or revolution, where the current order is destroyed and it gets replaced with a new order. And thus the cycle starts all over again. And these cycles have repeated themselves over and over and over again. The last crisis we had was World War II. And you know what that means, right? Extend this pattern out and you'll realize that we are deep into the fourth turning already. And the climax of this fourth turning, that single catastrophic event that's gonna destroy the current order and replace it with a new one, well, that crisis is just a few years away, exactly as destiny intended. What will this catastrophic event be? The best case? Pure economic mayhem that will make the inflation we've been seeing right now look like a walk in the park. The worst case? War. World War. So the Fed has finally stopped the money printer and has been raising interest rates to try to stop the inflation. And we have never raised interest rates as fast before.
They kept turning the inflation knob and looking at the CPI and seeing, oh, we're not at 2%, let's do more. Now all of a sudden it's a lag and now it's not 2%, it's 10%. And there's nothing they can do now. It's the genie's out of the bottle and there's no putting it back in.
This is because of the lag effects. Every time the Fed has raised rates a lot in the past, there has always been a recession afterwards. On average, it takes 11 months for a recession to happen.
The Federal Reserve today paused its recent interest rate hikes, leaving them unchanged after 10 straight increases.
Which means we are gonna have a recession around 11 to 12 months from now. Okay, how bad do you think the inflation can get?
Well, I mean, it could get much worse. And it will get much worse. We've been kicking it down the road really since the 1987 stock market crash. We've got a long period, 40 years or so of can kicking almost. And during those years, the problems have really, really grown. It'd be like 40 years, without an earthquake or without a forest fire. And then when you finally get one, it's terrible because you didn't have the smaller fires or the smaller quakes to take the pressure off. And so when it happens, it's really bad. So we're gonna have a horrible crisis because we were able to postpone it for as long as we did. And at the end, there's no bailouts because the Fed has bailed everybody out by creating more inflation, but won't be able to do that anymore without the inflation itself being the problem.
And as always, when this crisis comes, it will be the poor and the middle class that suffer the most, and all their last remaining wealth will just get transferred to the rich, just like COVID. You got 12 months before a recession, thanks to the lag effects, before things start getting really bad. And if you want to prepare, it's safe to say that the average 9-to-5 job where you can get laid off at any moment is not going to cut it. And 12 months sounds like a lot of time to prepare, right? Wrong! Think about how quickly this last year flew by. It's December already. So if you really want to prepare, if you really want to make sure you come out on top, you have to start preparing in this literal moments. You watching this right now are the hero in this crisis. And it's time for your rendezvous with destiny. When the crisis arrives, when the recession arrives in 12 months or whatever, the only thing that matters is will you be one of the poor or middle class that use this opportunity to ascend to the upper class? To be one of the select few that will be buying up all the stocks, real estate, and businesses at fire sale prices? Or will you be one of the many that will be crushed, exiled into poverty? Well, if you don't want to be part of the unfortunate many, then you better dedicate the next 12 months or so to stacking as much money, power, and influence as humanly possible. Because this might legitimately be you and your family's last chance. But how on earth are you going to make an ungodly amount of money in such a short amount of time? Well, your first instinct might be to try to make money as a public figure, because that is what all of us have always been exposed to, celebrities and celebrity entrepreneurs. We've been conditioned to think that that's the only way to get money, power, and influence, but that just couldn't be further from the truth. In fact, being a public figure in a time of crisis is the last thing you want to do. Because think about it, Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, Mark Zuckerberg, in times of crisis, they are going to be the first to be pillaged.
They seized a fleet of luxury cars and raided a luxury villa north of the capital.
They're going to be the first to be taxed, to be prosecuted, to be hung from the gallows. Why? Because these are the only rich people that poor people know about. These rich people have public wealth. When the masses shout, "Feed the rich and feed the poor! This is class war!" These are the people they're referring to. And you don't even have to look far to see this happening. Think about Sam Bankman-Fried, Elizabeth Holmes, Martin Shkreli, Trump. These are far from the wealthiest people out there. They're far from the most powerful people out there, including Trump. But they are the most well-known, and that's why they got taken down. Or take an even less extreme example, Logan Paul. Sure, he's made a lot of money from all this attention, but look at all the controversies he's gone through recently. That is the cost of being top of mind. And even if something big doesn't happen to them, their lives are miserable. They live in a constant state of trying to please the public, teetering on the edge of getting canceled and prosecuted. While the people who actually have the money, who actually have the power, they're not dealing with any of this nonsense. They're not on the Forbes list. As we've said before, there are actually way more billionaires out there that aren't on the Forbes list that we have no idea about. You don't know their names, you don't even know what they look like. They make their money in the shadows. They pay off the right people in the shadows, so they get to enjoy their wealth in the shadows, without any scrutiny. So when the crisis comes, none of the heat will be on them. The masses can't eat you if they don't know you're rich. So while there's blood in the streets, they'll be free to swoop up the last remaining scraps of the masses. These people have what we call stealth wealth, the exact opposite of public wealth, and they are the actual role models you want to emulate. Not Elon Musk, who has to deal with a new lawsuit practically every single day. Stealth wealth is what you should be actually going for to prepare for this crisis. I obviously learned this a little too late, but I'm already on a bunch of lists, so it's too late to go back now. But fun fact, this is one of the reasons why I'm creating other channels that don't flaunt my name, face, and voice. But that is me. Since you're starting from scratch, how do you actually start stacking money and power while staying under the radar to prepare for the crisis? Well, aspiring capitalist, let's go over how. If you're gonna build stealth wealth fast, the first thing is you need to build multiple streams of income. Now, the term multiple streams of income has been completely bastardized by personal finance YouTubers, and the way they pitch it is a complete and utter sham. I make money from this little scheme, then I make a few extra $100 from this little scheme, and then this one, and oh yeah, I have this one too. But that is simply not how the real world works. That's why every time I hear someone say multiple streams of income, I just cringe. You see, if you're starting from nothing and you're spending part of your time trying to trade stocks, another part of your time looking at real estate listings for you to flip, another part of your time trying to run a dropshipping store, and then finally you spend another part of your time trying to grow a YouTube channel, and you go up against a guy who's just doing YouTube, who's gonna win? Obviously, the other guy who was focused. But don't take my word for it, take a look at a real life example. When I was first getting started, I was very similar to where you might be right now. I was watching a lot of finance YouTubers, I was reading a lot of business books, so I bought into the cliche dream of having a ton of money, being able to buy whatever I want, travel the world, all the cliche stuff you hear online. And I thought that multiple streams of income was the answer. So I started trying to trade stocks while trying to code a SaaS app while trying to do YouTube, and surprise surprise, I made practically $0 and zero progress. But the moment I read the book The One Thing, where it tells you if you want to be successful you can only focus on one thing, and I treated those words like scripture, I quit every other side hustle I was half-assing, and I bet it all into just YouTube. A few months later, I had my first viral video, and it just snowballed from there to where I'm at today. On the other hand, I have some old friends from when I was first getting started who did not subscribe to the teachings of The One Thing. They always had shiny object syndrome, they were constantly moving from one thing to the next hoping that this one's gonna be it, which is why today they've made zero progress. They're literally almost exactly where they were when we first met. It's pretty sad. So if you want to prepare for the crisis, don't try to learn a bunch of different income streams right off the bat. The world is simply too competitive to try to master two things at once. Would Ronaldo be Ronaldo if he tried to master soccer and baseball at the same time? No, that would be a surefire way to stay a peasant. So instead, choose one thing, viciously say no to everything else, and get really good at that one thing. It was only after I started making money from my one thing did I even think about branching out and trying to create other streams of income. Today, I have many streams of income, and each of them makes a lot of money. But here is the key difference. All the different income streams I have today are all still based on my one thing. Once I started making money from YouTube, which is my one thing, yours may be different. It wasn't then that I tried something completely different like dropshipping. It wasn't then that I wasted my time trying to learn how to trade stocks. I didn't waste time trying to start a podcast. No, I already had something that was working. Now was not the time to get distracted. Now was the time to pour jet fuel on the fire. So instead of trying to build new streams of income from scratch, I simply found more ways to make money off of the same skill, off of the same one thing. And that is what you need to do. Get really good at one thing, and then don't get distracted, just find more ways to make money from it. I promise you, once you start to see some success, people are gonna come to you and say, oh man, you can make so much money if you started a podcast. No. Oh hey, you wanna partner with me on this completely different business that you have zero experience in? No. Hey, you wanna be a guest on my podcast? Do any of these things have to do with your one thing? No? Then just say no. This is what I mean by viciously saying no to everything else, and it's what I still do to this day. And ironically, it's because that I said no to everything else that today I actually have multiple income streams. And these are not BS income streams, each one of them is really substantial. That means I can finally, chill out, because if one of these crashes and burns tomorrow or during the crisis, I will be just fine. On top of that, because they all stem from just one single skill, my days are pretty chill. I spend my days doing one thing and get paid multiple times over for that one thing. I don't have a podcast I need to record, I don't have an Airbnb I have to juggle, nothing. So what is the difference between what I did and what these finance influencers peddle? They're saying you need to split your time, your focus, to create completely different types of income streams that have no relation to each other. I'm saying the complete opposite. Go all in on one skill, one business, become the best you can be at it, and then find different ways to make money from that same skill. And once you saved up enough money, you can put your money into investments that don't require your time. For example, one of the investments I have is in a rental property that I don't see managed. I've never spoken to the tenants, nothing. And this isn't anything new. Mr. Beast runs the same model. He only does one thing, make crazy viral videos, so he only does the work once and he gets paid again and again from it. From YouTube ads, sponsors, he has his own products, he translates his videos into different languages and so on. Or take Elon Musk. Everyone looks at Elon and goes, he has so many businesses, so I gotta start a bunch of different ones. But they're completely missing the point. Sure, Elon has a bunch of businesses today, but at the start he went all in on just one, PayPal. It was only after he sold PayPal and got a bunch of money that he started doing multiple businesses. But by then he had managers, he had partners he could trust to do the day-to-day operations for him. The same thing with Warren Buffett. Everyone talks about how Warren Buffett diversifies, every finance influencer's favorite word. But look at what he actually does. Warren Buffett doesn't diversify. Sure, he invests in different things, but he spent his entire life, his entire being, focused on just getting better at one thing, running Berkshire Hathaway. Can you imagine how idiotic it would look if Warren Buffett came out today and said he was going to start some new side hustle? The key to self-wealth or any kind of wealth is finding your one thing. But which one thing do you choose? Well, whatever you choose, with the way the world is going, you better make sure your one thing isn't going to tie you down. One of the more important things that COVID taught us is that no matter how first world you think your country is, including the US, things can go from bad to worse real quick. So as the crisis unfolds, as there's more inflation, more unemployment, as the government racks up more and more debt that they're going to have to pay interest on, governments from all over the world are only going to have one solution to this problem. Give away more free stuff. More stimulus checks, more social programs, more welfare, more bailouts. And how are they going to pay for all this nonsense? Well, they only have two choices. They're either going to print more money, or they're going to directly steal more money from you in the form of taxes. This is pretty much a guarantee at this point. The only question is, when is it going to happen in your country? And this is not to mention all the other bad stuff that can happen, like wars, riots, and lockdowns. That's why whatever skill you choose to make your self-wealth cannot be location dependent. You can keep your job like I did when I was first getting started, but you need one thing that is not dependent on physical locations, online only. When I first started, my dream was to have a big office with cool decorations and a big in-person editing team, but what I've come to learn is that none of that matters. All that matters is, do you provide value to people? If you do, you will make money. And there are a million ways to provide value without needing a physical location or whatever. That way, you don't have to drastically alter your lifestyle, and if things do go down in your city, state, or country, you'll be able to pick up your stuff and leave on a moment's notice, and your income will not be affected. If you run a doctor's office, for example, and you had to pick up and leave, well, you would be screwed because you would lose everything and have to start over from zero. And here's another important thing. Ideally, you want some kind of online business where you make at least some of your money from large corporations. Large corporations don't have to be your only customer, but they should make up a good chunk of your revenue. Why? Because if there's anything we've learned from 2008 and 2020, is that governments will go to the ends of the earth to bail out large corporations before they ever help out the little guy. And the reasoning is simple. Large corporations control a vast majority of the economy. The government is dependent on them. The politicians are indebted to them. Heck, even we're dependent on them. They really are too big to fail. Which means if you can find a way to make large corporations dependent on you by providing some service that makes them money, you will be much more protected. Now, most people do make money from a large corporation, i.e. their job, but you know, when the crisis arrives, there's a high likelihood of them getting fired. Back when COVID happened, what the masses saw as a problem, they lost their job, they were afraid of getting sick, they couldn't go outside. Others saw an opportunity.
Well, the world's 10 wealthiest men doubled their fortunes during the first 2 years of the pandemic,
which is more than $1.3 trillion. During that time, 43 people became billionaires for the first time.
5 million people became millionaires in 2020 alone.
Now, some may call these people opportunistic, that this is filthy disaster capitalism, that you're making money off the backs of those who are suffering. Shame on you. But in reality, profiting off of the crisis is the most ethical thing you can do. You know, as long as you don't screw people over. Think about it, there is no nobility in getting crushed along with everyone else. The crisis is gonna happen anyways. So it is your moral duty to make sure you have enough money to take care of those around you. Think about it, if you're penniless and homeless, how are you gonna take care of your family? How are you gonna be able to take care of your neighbor when you can't even take care of yourself? The more money you accumulate, the more potential you have to help others. So don't treat money and success as a nice to have, as in it would be nice if I was rich. No, treat it as your moral and ethical duty. And the funny thing is that when you do treat success as your duty, success comes a lot easier. And there will be a lot of success to have in this coming crisis. You see, when it all comes crashing down, the stock market, the job market, the real estate market, all that money, all those losses aren't just gonna disappear. No, all those losses are just gonna get transferred from one wallet to the next, from the have-nots to the haves. And when the next round of stimulus checks are inevitably sent out, the results will be the same. It's gonna happen. It is your duty to make sure that as much of that money goes into your wallet and not the wallet of BlackRock. But how do you actually do this? Well, take this example. During COVID, people wanted to be informed about what was happening with stimulus checks, but there just wasn't an easy to understand source to go to. So a handful of YouTubers started making a ton of videos about stimulus checks, which made them blow up from nothing. Today, it seems so obvious that this was a good idea. That of course making videos on stimulus checks was a good idea. So why didn't everyone see this opportunity when it first appeared? Simple. It's because for our entire lives, we've been conditioned to just follow orders, to keep our head down and obey. We were never taught that, hey little Billy, always keep an eye out for potential business opportunities. But lucky for you, training your brain to see opportunities is actually a lot easier than you think. I've trained myself to notice that whenever I complain about something, whenever I think I hate this or I hate that, well, what do I hate? Maybe a lot of other people hate it as well and I can make a business out of it. When I think to myself that this is so annoying, well, what's annoying? Maybe other people find it annoying as well and I can make a product out of it. You should train your brain to be constantly on the lookout for problems, not because you're a negative Nancy, but because problems are the precursor to a great business idea. A more concrete example is when I watch a video on YouTube and I think, man, I wish they would have explained this better. Or this channel would be cool if it did this. And boom, I think to myself, maybe this can be a new channel idea. When I hear something in the news or on social media that piques my interest, maybe that could be a new video idea. Because at the end of the day, the most successful businesses are the ones that solve the most problems for the most people. And these don't have to be solve world hunger type problems. The problems can be rather insignificant. The problem of wanting to flex in the case of Apple. The problem of not wanting to wash glasses in the case of plastic cups. The problem of being bored and wanting to be entertained in the case of social media. The rich still complain about stuff every day like the rest of the masses. But the difference is the rich take it one step further and turn that complaint into a business. So condition your brain to turn every problem you encounter into a potential business or product. The world rewards those that solve the most problems. And lucky for you, there are gonna be a lot of problems coming ahead, just like there were in COVID. So far you know you need stealth wealth, not public wealth. You know that in order to make stealth wealth, you need to find that one thing and lock into it. You know that your one thing cannot depend on a single location. And now you know how to train your brain to recognize opportunities when the masses only see complaints. And you want to start practicing this right now. The more you practice it in your day-to-day life, the more opportunities you're going to see that the masses won't. But since we don't have that much time until the crisis arrives, there's still one more thing you absolutely need if you want to accelerate your progress. If there was only one piece of advice I could give for the rest of my life that I've never really heard anyone else talk about, the advice would be simple. Be the favorite student. It sounds so simple yet so overlooked. My entire life I've always tried to be the favorite student, and it's been the secret to all my success. I find the best teacher, I treat their words as scripture, which means I literally just shut my mouth and do whatever they tell me to do without question. I inevitably make a ton of progress really fast because I found the best teacher and didn't try to put my own spin on it. And because 99% of the population are horrible students, I was probably the first person to actually listen to this teacher and progressed, so they're gonna get an insane, almost opioid-like satisfaction from me succeeding that they're not gonna get anywhere else. And so they proceed to give me all their secrets, all their knowledge, all their lifetime of wisdom on a silver platter. That is how I progress so fast in life. I find the best teacher, I go all in on them. That way I'm able to turn years into months, months into days, and progress way faster. I did this in school. As long as I respected the teacher, I was always the favorite student. I did this with my Taekwondo coach back when I was doing that. I did this with all the books I fell in love with, like The One Thing. When I find one of those rare books that I need, I will literally treat it like scripture, like the Bible, as if the hand of God wrote those words himself. And most importantly, I did this with my business advisor, Arvid Ali, who you've seen on the channel before. And the great thing is that you can just as easily do the same. Anyone can find a great teacher for free or with little money and be their favorite student. The only thing that it requires is that you shut your mouth, you put aside your ego, and you go all in on that teacher. Because remember, 99% of people are horrible students. So doing this is going to be ridiculously easy. For example, people ask me all the time for YouTube advice, and after all these years, I think there has been a grand total of maybe 2 people that have followed my advice, out of the hundreds of people I've helped. Most people, you try to tell them something and they're like, oh yeah, that's so smart. They get all excited and feel smart because they just got the answer, and then they take zero action. 99% of the population is like this, and yet they wonder why they're part of the 99%. And I know, being the teacher's pet, treating their words like scripture, being a good follower, it all sounds really weird. But that is the irony in it. It's that if you want to be free, if you want to be a leader, ironically, it means you have to first be the best follower. Because the best follower gets taught all the secrets from the current leader until it's their turn to take the throne. But obviously, all this depends on you finding the right teacher, because the wrong teacher can just as easily lead you down a bad path. It's why poverty is so hard to escape. Because you know, poor people learning from other poor people is a vicious cycle. So how do you find the right teacher? Well, the first step is knowing that coaches are a real thing. There are a certain number of people out there that may not be the best at what they do, but they sure are great at teaching it. And the amount of satisfaction they get from their students succeeding is almost the same as if they succeeded themselves. If you ever had a passionate teacher that made you genuinely interested in a subject that you would have never thought that you would be interested in, they are one of these people. The perfect example of this is Mike Tyson's coach Cus D'Amato. Cus would have never been the best boxer in the world, but he was the only one that could have groomed Mike Tyson into the best. An easy way to start finding the right teacher is just by doing what I did. Start with books and teachers online. Find one that you like to learn from that has the results you want, and as weird as it sounds, treat their words like scripture and see if it works. If it works, keep treating their words like scripture. If it doesn't, stop and find someone else. But it's important to just stick to one teacher at a time, because in this world there are a million ways to accomplish the same thing. So if you try to listen to more than one teacher, you're gonna get conflicting advice. And all the conflicting advice may be true on their own, but to be successful, you have to go all in on just one teacher, on just one philosophy, at least when you first start out. And as you make progress, you can start weaseling your way into the right circles and meeting the right in-person teachers. For the right in-person teacher, I've had a mix of both paid teachers and free teachers. For the free teachers that absolutely changed my life, I found that for all of them, I never actively sought them out. I wasn't desperately trying to find them. I was just a genuinely curious good student, which naturally led me to put myself in positions where I crossed paths with them, and when I did cross paths with them, they saw that in me, so they gave me some advice that I took to heart. I took action on their advice, got results from it, told them about it. They were inevitably shocked that someone actually listened to them, and thus the relationship is born. If you want to find the right free teacher, you can't force it. Why? Because there are zero experts out there going around thinking, hey, I need to find a mentee that I'll coach for free. All you can do is be in the state of mind of a good student, and hopefully you'll naturally cross paths with the right teacher. If you don't have time to wait for a free teacher to come into your life, don't shy away from paying for one. What's amazing about this world is that you can pretty much hire any top tier coach for around $100 to $150 an hour. I've done it with martial arts coaches, other types of coaches, but for business coaches, expect to pay more. And I know, $100 sounds like a lot, but think about it. They're willing to give you all their secrets, decades of experience, things that would take you years and a lot of hardship to learn on your own, and all you gotta do is pay them a measly $100? I would save years of my life for $100 an hour any day of the week. So if you don't want to wait for a free teacher, find a paid one. Don't view it as you're wasting X amount of dollars on them, but rather view it as you're buying back 1 year, 5 years, 10 years of your life. The masses are always gonna look for the next crypto token where they can put $1,000 in and get $100,000 back. But at the end of the day, this is just degenerate gambling. It's just hope, and you should not base your fate on hope. If you actually want an investment where you can put $1,000 in and potentially get $100,000 back or more, all you gotta do is look in the mirror. The best investment will always be in yourself. Most people who will try to find the next crypto token will lose all their money, but everyone can pay a little money to learn a skill right now that makes them $100,000, if not more. When you see all the crazy stuff happening right now, when you see the dark times ahead of us, when you see the gap between the rich and the poor continuing to widen, when you see all the videos on this channel, it's easy to become pessimistic. Everything is a scam, the system is rigged, all the powers that be are against me, which is how most people have been conditioned to react. But if the world is just one big giant scam, okay, why not just accept that and use it to your advantage, so we make sure we come out on top? And that is the goal of this channel and this series. 12 months. You have 12 months to carve yourself into the most dangerous individual you can be. 12 months to find your one thing that is location dependent, to train your brain to see opportunities, to become the favorite student, to ultimately build your self-wealth. The bad news is that these 12 months are gonna fly by if you're gonna be like the rest of the masses and procrastinate. The good news is that you can accomplish a lot in 12 months if you choose the right route. And if you position yourself right, your wallet will be on the receiving end of the wealth transfer of a lifetime. And in part 3 of this documentary series that will be dropping in 2 days, I will be going over what I'm personally doing to prepare for the crisis in vivid detail. You're not gonna wanna miss it, so make sure you click the link below to join our Telegram group to get notified. So subscribe and click the card on the screen to get notified when part 3 drops.